The phrase is ugly because it is mostly true, but only if you understand stealing beyond the crude image of a hand in someone's pocket. The poor steal things. The rich steal systems. A poor man steals bread and is called a criminal. A powerful man captures laws, wages, land, attention, debt, desire, and time, and is called a founder, investor, ruler, visionary, patriarch, reformer, or patriot. Wealth rarely comes from hard work. Hard work is what civilizations feed on. The pyramids were not built by dreamers. Empires were not funded by kindness. Corporations do not scale by fairness. Riches appear where someone learns how to take more value from the world than they personally create, then makes the taking look legal, moral, necessary, or inspirational. Religion taught humans to obey. Politics taught them to fear. Money taught them to compete. Status taught them to betray themselves voluntarily. Most people do not want justice. They want permission to be above someone else. Their morality changes the moment their rank changes. Give a starving man power, and he will not create heaven. He will usually recreate the hierarchy that humiliated him, with himself on top. Society calls theft immoral only when it is done by the weak. When theft is organized, taxed, branded, inherited, or hidden inside contracts, it becomes civilization. The employee sells life by the hour. The landlord sells access to existence. The banker sells tomorrow. The politician sells fear. The influencer sells identity. The priest sells cosmic meaning. The billionaire sells dependence and calls it innovation. This is why the cleanest people rarely become the richest. To become very rich, one must develop a special blindness, the ability to see human beings as numbers, markets, voters, users, tenants, labor, consumers, assets, mouths, data, or risk. A truly moral person has limits. Wealth hates limits. The rich do not simply have more money, they have more distance from consequences. That distance is the real luxury. The poor feel reality immediately, the rich outsource it. So yes, he who does not steal will not become rich is not a law of nature, but it is a law of civilization. Not all rich people are thieves in the legal sense, but great wealth almost always contains extraction somewhere in its bloodline. The deepest truth is this: humans do not worship goodness. They worship power that has survived long enough to rename itself goodness.
And yet, the strange part is not that humans built a world around extraction. The strange part is how quickly people adapt to it. A child does not enter the world obsessed with status. A child does not naturally understand humiliation. A child does not wake up measuring his worth against strangers. That machinery is installed later, slowly, quietly. First through comparison, then through reward, then through fear. By adulthood, most people no longer know whether their desires are truly theirs. They want wealth because poverty wounds dignity. They want status because invisibility feels like death. They want power because helplessness leaves scars that never fully close. And underneath almost every ambition is not greed, but terror, the terror of becoming irrelevant, replaceable, discarded. Civilization runs on this fear more than it runs on money. Money is only the visible symbol. Fear is the actual fuel. That is why even the wealthy rarely stop chasing more. Because accumulation is not solving an external problem. It is anesthetizing an internal one. A man with 10 million fears losing it. A man with 1 billion fears losing status. An empire fears collapse. A celebrity fears silence. A politician fears irrelevance. A father fears failure. A lonely person fears being unseen. Humans call this ambition because the word sounds noble, but often it is simply panic wearing expensive clothing. And this is where the tragedy becomes psychological. People sacrifice their lives to escape suffering, then build identities around the very systems creating it. They work jobs they hate to buy symbols that impress people they secretly resent. They destroy their health to prove they are successful. They destroy relationships to prove they are important. They destroy inner peace to prove they are not weak. Then one day, they wake up surrounded by possessions, and completely unable to feel alive. Not because they failed, because they obeyed too perfectly. Modern society rewards fragmentation. The more disconnected a person becomes from themselves, the easier they are to control. A human being at peace is difficult to manipulate. A human being who understands enough is difficult to shame. A human being who no longer worships status becomes economically dangerous, so the system trains endless dissatisfaction. Not openly, not through conspiracy, through atmosphere. Every screen whispers, "You are behind. You are inadequate. You are aging. You are losing. You are less." And eventually, humans internalize the voice so deeply they continue the punishment themselves, even in silence. That is why loneliness feels heavier now than in previous generations. Not because humans are physically alone, because they are existentially disconnected. They perform constantly. Even intimacy has become performance. Even morality becomes branding. Even rebellion becomes aesthetic. People no longer ask, "Who am I?" They ask, "How am I perceived?" That question changes civilizations. Because once perception becomes more important than truth, humans begin amputating pieces of themselves to remain socially survivable. This is why so many people feel exhausted without understanding why. The exhaustion is not only labor, it is self-suppression. It is the exhaustion of wearing acceptable masks for decades. And eventually, a terrifying realization appears. Many people never truly lived. They managed impressions. They maintained identities. They survived economically. But internally, they remained strangers to themselves. That realization breaks some people, but it frees others. Because once a person sees the machinery clearly, something inside them begins to loosen. Not ambition, not desire, not participation in society. Illusion. The illusion that status equals worth. The illusion that wealth guarantees meaning. The illusion that domination creates fulfillment. The illusion that appearing powerful is the same as being at peace. The world tells humans to become harder. Life eventually teaches the opposite. The people who understand existence most deeply are rarely the ones intoxicated by conquest. Usually they are people who suffered enough to stop worshiping unnecessary things. People who learn that attention is temporary. Beauty fades, power shifts, money moves, crowds forget. History rewrites itself endlessly. But consciousness, the simple experience of being alive, remains astonishingly fragile. And suddenly the questions change, not "How do I become superior?" but "What kind of human being am I becoming while I pursue all this?" That question is dangerous because many honest people discover they abandoned themselves long ago, not for evil reasons, for survival, to be accepted, to be safe, to be respected, to avoid humiliation, to avoid hunger, to avoid loneliness. Humans are far more forgivable when you understand how afraid they are. Even cruelty often comes from fear. Even arrogance is usually compensation. Even obsession with power often hides deep inner fragility. The loudest people are rarely the strongest. The most admired people are often the emptiest. And some of the quietest people on earth carry immense inner stability because they no longer need the world to constantly confirm their existence. That may be the closest thing to freedom civilization allows. Not escaping society. Seeing through it without becoming consumed by hatred. Because hatred chains people to the thing they oppose. The goal is not cynicism. Cynicism is simply wounded idealism that became arrogant. The goal is clarity. To understand that humanity is capable of both tenderness and brutality. That systems corrupt easily because humans are psychologically vulnerable. That greed is real, but pain is also real. That people harm each other often while trying desperately not to drown themselves. And once this becomes clear, something unexpectedly calm emerges, not optimism. Perspective. You stop expecting civilization to save your soul. You stop expecting wealth to remove existential emptiness. You stop expecting status to heal insecurity. You stop expecting applause to create self-worth. you begin understanding that inner peace was never hidden inside dominance. It was hidden beneath noise. And perhaps that is the final irony. After all the competition, all the extraction, all the performance, all the endless attempts to become more, many human beings eventually discover that the deepest form of wealth is simply being able to sit alone without hating themselves. Then the question is no longer, what is wrong with the world? The question becomes, how do you remain human inside it? Because once you see the machinery clearly, you lose the luxury of unconscious living. You can no longer pretend endless consumption will fulfill you. You can no longer confuse attention with love. You can no longer mistake status for identity. You can no longer sell pieces of your soul without feeling the cost. Awareness creates responsibility. And the first responsibility is this: stop building a life designed to impress people you would never trust with your pain. That alone eliminates enormous amounts of psychological suffering. Most humans exhaust themselves maintaining audiences instead of relationships. They optimize their image instead of their nervous system. They chase admiration from strangers while becoming emotionally unavailable to themselves. A powerful life is not built by maximizing appearances, it is built by reducing inner contradiction. Say what you actually believe. Own what you actually value. Stop shaping your personality around social survival, because the longer a person performs, the harder it becomes to remember who is performing. And eventually, the mask starts eating the face. The second realization is harsher. You must learn the difference between using money and serving it. Money is a tool. But modern society trains humans to turn tools into gods. A hammer is useful. A hammer worshiper is insane. The same is true for wealth. Make money, build security, escape unnecessary dependence, but never confuse financial success with existential success. One protects comfort, the other protects the soul. They are not the same achievement. A person who earns modestly but sleeps peacefully may understand life better than a billionaire addicted to distraction. Because the real danger of wealth is not greed, it is insulation. Too much comfort disconnects humans from reality, from gratitude, from mortality, from other people. That is why many powerful individuals slowly lose emotional sensitivity. They stop hearing truth because everyone around them becomes financially afraid to speak honestly. So if success comes, keep contact with reality. Cook your own food sometimes. Spend time with people who gain nothing from flattering you. Remain capable of silence. Remain capable of being wrong. Remain capable of embarrassment. These things protect the mind from corruption. Another principle: do not allow ambition to consume your entire identity. A human being should have goals, but when achievement becomes the sole source of self-worth, life turns psychologically unstable. Because eventually, one failure feels like personal annihilation. This is why so many high achievers secretly collapse internally. Their entire existence rests on performance. Remove the applause, and nothing remains. Build a life where your value is not constantly on trial. Work hard, create things, pursue excellence, but remain larger than your career. If your work dies, you should still know who you are. And perhaps most importantly, protect your attention. Because attention is not merely focus anymore, it is life itself. Whatever captures your attention eventually shapes your inner world. If a human spends years consuming outrage, comparison, envy, vanity, fear, and noise, they should not be surprised when inner peace becomes impossible. The mind absorbs atmosphere. Guard it carefully, not through isolation from reality, but through conscious exposure. Choose what enters your nervous system repeatedly. Few things are more destructive than normalized psychological poison. And another truth humans rarely hear: learn how to sit still without escaping yourself. No phone, no music, no stimulation, no performance. Just silence. At first, many people experience panic there, because silence removes anesthesia. Everything unresolved begins speaking, but eventually something extraordinary happens. A person starts hearing their real thoughts beneath the social noise. Not programmed desires, not algorithmic impulses, not inherited expectations, the deeper self. And that voice is usually quieter than ego. It does not scream for domination. It does not obsess over proving superiority. It does not need constant witnesses. It asks simpler questions. Am I living truthfully? Am I emotionally awake? Am I becoming someone I can respect privately? That last part matters enormously. Private self-respect is one of the rarest forms of wealth on earth, because public respect can be manipulated. Private respect cannot. You know when you are lying to yourself. You know when your confidence is performance. You know when your morality disappears under pressure. And deep down, humans suffer when they betray themselves repeatedly. Not always immediately, but psychologically, the damage accumulates. This is why integrity matters beyond morality. It preserves internal stability. A fragmented person becomes easy to break. A person aligned with themselves becomes harder to control, not because they are aggressive, because they are no longer divided internally. And there is another mistake humans make after awakening to society's illusions. They become cold, detached, superior, emotionally numb. But wisdom is not emotional death. A person does not become stronger by feeling less. Real strength is remaining open without becoming naive, remaining kind without becoming weak, remaining ambitious without becoming consumed, remaining aware without becoming cynical. Bitterness is not intelligence. Many wounded people confuse the two. Do not let the ugliness of the world destroy your ability to recognize beauty, because despite everything, beauty still exists. In loyalty, in honesty, in quiet love, in friendship without transaction, in people who tell the truth when lying would benefit them, in those who remain gentle after suffering. These people are not weak. They are civilization's remaining proof that humanity is not completely lost. And maybe this is the final understanding. You do not escape the corruption of the world by winning its games harder than everyone else. You escape by refusing to let the game define your inner condition. You earn money without worshiping it. You build success without attaching your soul to it. You participate in society without becoming psychologically owned by it. And slowly, something changes. The hunger calms down, not because life becomes perfect, but because you stop asking the world to tell you who you are. At that point, ambition becomes cleaner. Relationships become more honest. Loneliness becomes less terrifying. Silence becomes less empty. And death itself begins looking different. Not as the interruption of achievement, but as the final confirmation that none of the performances were ever the real you. In the end, almost everything society trained humans to chase disappears. The body weakens, status transfers, money changes hands, crowds forget names, history dissolves identities into dust. But one question survives longer than all the others. Did you remain real, or did you spend your entire life becoming acceptable?